Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. As a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, I address the Senate tonight about corruption in local government in Queensland. As a Senator for Queensland, I am deeply concerned for people's well-being. My connection with Queensland includes being a former candidate in the city of Ipswich, and I am a strong supporter of local government. So you think democracy exists in Ipswich, in Logan, in Moreton City? Let me explain why it has failed for voters in these areas. Mayor Pisali in Ipswich was widely approved by voters. He was even loved. Voters were deceived. He was a crook and is now in jail. Videos and video crews following in his wake, making propaganda, does not constitute good governance. Corruption does not constitute good governance. Being in jail does not constitute good governance. Some voters have been supporters of the Local Government Association of Queensland, the LGAQ. The evidence is in now of their involvement with the corrupt practices of corrupt councils around Queensland. Operation Belcara in Queensland highlighted the corruption in local government in my home state of Queensland, and none more so than in Ipswich, Logan and Moreton Bay city councils. These are three of the largest city councils in our state. Now, there was a common thread to this corruption, and this is the Local Government Association of Queensland, the LGAQ. In Logan, the LGAQ advised the elected councillors to ignore the directives of the Crime and Corruption Commission. Can you believe that? Ignore the directives of the Crime and Corruption Commission, and then sacked their CEO, Sharon Kelsey, who was exposing the corruption. That's what they do at local governments in some cities in Queensland with people who want to restore democracy. The LGAQ Chief Executive Officer, Mr Greg Hallam, said in correspondence in support of those dodgy councillors that he would, quote, back them to the gates of hell, end of quote. The following investigation after that resulted in the arrest of 7 of the councillors and the mayor, facing charges of a total of 14 criminal offences. The council was then sacked by the Queensland Government in 2019. In Moreton Bay Regional Council, while the council was under investigation in March 2019, the mayor issued a contract to a company owned by a colleague and a former executive of the LGAQ to conduct a review by a mate. The company, Grassroots Connections Australia Proprietary Limited, was a pre-approved company to supply management services through the LGAQ local buy system. This same system has sent many local companies broke because they can no longer get work from local governments. Now, former state MP for Cairns, Mr Rob Pine, showed his courage. He tabled documents in state parliament in 2016 claiming the LGAQ was a, quote, rehoming service for dodgy and sacked council CEOs and officers, end of quote. In June 2019, Moreton Bay councillor Mr Adrian Radel was arrested and charged with official corruption. In December 2019, the mayor of Moreton Bay Regional Council was arrested and charged with misconduct in public office. And in Ipswich, the entire council was sacked and the mayor jailed, and the subsequent mayor found guilty of serious misconduct, while the LGAQ funded personal defamation cases on behalf of councillors against people who criticised those councillors when those councillors were exposed as being corrupt. Why? Because they wanted to shut down any dissent, shut down any complaints about corruption. The LGAQ intimidated. The LGAQ were again involved through a company set up by jailed Mr Carl Wolfe and his also jailed associate Mr Claude Walker. The LGAQ used to be just a group of councillors in an organisation lobbying federal and state governments for funds and services. Now, the LGAQ is a billion-dollar organisation run as a purported private, not-for-profit political organisation. What a sham. The LGAQ in the 2020 Queensland election coming up next month has not changed. They are still trying to destroy candidates who don't agree with their corrupt policies and are involved in or have set up social media troll pages to defame and discredit candidates. They want to influence corruptly the outcomes of the elections. There should be a full investigation into all local government associations in Australia, as currently they appear to operate outside the law and operate as an unelected government entity. I can understand what the voters, what the electors in these local council areas must be thinking. Deceived, let down, betrayed. Some voters will be feeling angry, frustrated and disappointed. So what needs to be done? Voters need honesty and to be heard and served. Voters want good governance and service. But the answer, the simple answer, rests with the voters. Corruption can be weeded out by ensuring voters exercise their democratic choices when voting in the forthcoming local government elections. Their choices must be well informed, and the candidates need to show a sound track record of integrity and a strong history of fighting corrupt practices. One such person is Mr. Gary Duffy from Ipswich, who can be trusted. He has worked hard despite physical and emotional intimidation and legal intimidation. He has worked hard along with his wife Connie, and they have exposed the corruption. Many people from Ipswich have trusted him and come to Gary. So Mr. Duffy, a long-term Ipswich local community member, has provided valuable support in identifying and calling out those whose conduct was both deceptive and, in some cases, criminal. Some of these persons were councillors and some working closely with those councillors. In the future, I will seek leave to tender the responses of Mr. Duffy to a discussion paper issued by the Queensland State Government entitled Council's Reporting of Budget versus Actual Figures. Mr. Duffy examines and comments on the lack of transparency that may occur in local government spending when budget figures do not reflect actual figures. And that's putting it politely. His paper and his comments relate directly to the lack of transparency when these councils have made questionable decisions and attempt to cover their tracks. Here's a little trick that apparently the Labor Party, I'm told by people in Ipswich, uses. In a division within a local government area, the Labor Party will put up a candidate, and then 4 affiliated people will be candidates as well and direct their votes to the Labor Party. Labor is absolutely terrified that they will not continue to manage that council, because if a new management comes in, then they will dig deep into the corruption and expose it. The facts that I have presented today are true and remain an ongoing concern. I believe in democracy. This is where politicians represent the interests of their constituents and then act accordingly. Transparency is one of the ways to counter corruption. Put it in the open. Voting carefully, armed with facts and a belief in the integrity of your preferred candidate is another way to exercise our democratic rights. People want to be heard. They want good governance. And in local government, people want low rates and good services. And they want honesty and they want trustworthiness. The forthcoming Queensland local government election next month will give Queenslanders an opportunity to exercise their voting power and replace those shown to be corrupt. Replace them with good men and women. This is democracy in practice. Thank you.